what you've identified as the reason why in 2000, Louise and I decided to split our vote. She voted for Al Gore. I voted for Ralph Nader. And the reason I did so was, A, we lived in Vermont, and we knew that there was no way that Al Gore was going to lose Vermont. Had we lived in Florida or Ohio, it would have been different. We would have both voted for Gore. And B, because I wanted the Green Party to get, that 5% of the votes so that they'd get matching funds so that they could pull Democrats to the left. And I know there are some people who will point out that there have even been races where the Green Party's lost by a margin that was greater than the Democrat lost, and therefore a Republican is in the seat. But I would submit that if that were the case, in most cases, that Democrat was probably not a genuine progressive. Otherwise, the Greens wouldn't have been pulling votes away from them. But, it's in any case, Mark, the problem is we have a two-party system because of the way the Constitution was written. Madison realized it after the Constitution was written. He helped write it in 1787. In 1788, he was writing the Federalist Papers to help sell it to the American people so that in 1789 it could be ratified and we could have a republic and George Washington would become our first president and all that kind of stuff. It all happened in 1789. And in 1788, when he realized that it wasn't that he'd made a mistake, they just didn't have an alternative. They didn't know how to do it in a way that, with first past the post, winner take all elections, how could you possibly have anything more than two parties? Because if you had three parties, then 34% of the people could end up, picking the leader of the country. Or if you had four parties, 26% of the people could. And that's not small d Democratic. And he got very concerned about this. And you can read it in Federalist number 10. They called political parties back then factions. And Federalist number 10 is all about James Madison saying, okay, we've identified this weakness in the Constitution that if factions form, if political parties form, and there's more than two of them, that the third party or the fourth party will hurt the parties that they're closest to, and that it will, it will lead to a situation where you have leaders who don't have more than 50% of the vote, which is not truly democratic. And so he didn't have a solution for that other than what he says in Federalist number 10. And I encourage you to read it. He says, basically, please don't form factions. Don't form political parties, which is really ironic given that this is the very same James Madison, who at that time was in his early 30s. A decade later, when he was Secretary of State in the Thomas Jefferson administration, was the, as I recall, was the guy who helped Jefferson form the Democrat, what is today called the Democratic Party, the oldest and longest standing political party in the history of the world. And, but it wasn't until 1861, it wasn't until around the time of the U.S. Civil War that John Stuart Mill wrote On Liberty, as I recall, was the book in which he laid it out, and came up with this idea of proportional representation, where the people didn't vote for an individual, instead they voted for a party, and the seats in Parliament were apportioned based on how many, on percentages. In other words, if the Republicans got 22% of the vote, they'd get 22% of the seats in Congress. If the Democrats got, 35%, they get 35% of the seats. If the Green Party got 17%, they get 17% of the seats. And that's how pretty much every democracy that has been created since 1861 went. And that's why all these other democracies all around the world have multiple parties, is because they have proportional representation. We don't, and there were about 4 or 5 other countries that were democracies before our Civil War, and they don't, including Australia and New Zealand, and the way that they fixed it was with instant runoff voting. And that's why I'm so high on the Green Party. In addition to their being promoters of progressive causes, their major effort has been to bring about proportional representation so that they can have a say in the elections. And I think that's the only way to break up the duopoly, the two, basically two corporate parties, and is to have instant runoff voting, as they have in San Francisco. Which was brought to you courtesy of the Green Party. So, there's no easy answer here other than educate people and inform people. We've got to, as Tim Carpenter of Progressive Democrats of America, pdamerica.org, which is really an organization worth joining, as he points out, you got to have an outside game and an inside game. They came to D.C. here a while ago. I got up and I gave a talk about just the inside game, which was kind of dumb because I was ignoring the outside game. But we've got to play on the outside of the party and do movement politics, and we've got to play inside the party and participate inside the party and move the party in directions that we want to see it move. Otherwise, it's going to be taken over by and in many places has been already, but there's still some holdouts. It's going to be taken over by people that we don't want. So, Mark, thanks for the call, and thanks for raising the issue. It's an important one. It's a very important one.